Hey everyone, it is Vickie Magic here today with Wake Up to What Matters podcast. And today I have the beautiful Stacey Currie with me. Welcome, Stacey.
Hello, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolute pleasure. So Stacey, there's so many different kind of facets to you. So I want to invite you, if it's okay with you, just to share a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So I've got 5 kids. I run a business, a large format digital printing business. Lover of exercise, although we're in stage 4 lockdown in Melbourne, so I haven't had a gym since March. And yeah, that's a bit about me. Yeah.
Awesome. And so that wasn't very much at all about you, so I'm obviously going to push further. And what I want to ask you is, because the reason that I invited you onto my podcast is the thing that I love about you is just how resilient you are. You bounce back. So I really want you to share with some of our listeners, because this whole podcast is really about inspiring people to be the best version of themselves that's possible for them to be. And I've seen you and heard some of your stories, and your resilience is sort of almost second to none. So I'd love you to share some of that resilience strategy that you clearly have.
Okay, so if I take it back to the beginning.
Yes.
So I grew up without, I was a baby when my dad got custody of me. I grew up without a mum. I lived in housing commission with my dad. At the age of 14, I was living in the shed at the backyard, and then at the age of 15, I was pregnant. At the age of 19, I was homeless with 2 kids. And then at the age of 21, I found myself in a domestic violent relationship with 3 kids. Now, back then, domestic violence wasn't in your face like it is today. So I didn't know that I was actually in domestic violence. And it wasn't until the DHS got involved and they gave me 2 choices, and that was lose my kids to foster care, or stay in that relationship, or I had to change my life. And I remember distinctively driving away from that hospital. That it was probably in the middle of the night. I think it was about 3 a.m. when we finished at the hospital. I'd been at the Royal Children's all night from about 9 p.m. onwards. And I remember driving home thinking, because I promised the DHS and the federal police and the staff that I promise I will change my life if you don't take my kids off me, I promise. And I remember driving home thinking, oh my God, I've promised them, but what's this other life? Like, I honestly didn't know what this other life was that I was meant to live. I promised to change it, but I didn't know that my life was dysfunctional. And, in the self-help and personal growth industry, they all say, focus on what you do want. Well, I couldn't imagine another life other than what I had. I'd never had anyone in my life that wasn't in housing commission. My mum and dad both lived in housing commission. My family was very dysfunctional. They didn't own cars. They didn't have jobs. They didn't have education. I didn't know what to do. So I had to focus on what I didn't want first. Firstly, I didn't want to lose my kids. Then I didn't want to be a victim anymore. I had to get out of that. I didn't want to be angry anymore. I didn't want to be homeless anymore. So I had to get rid of all the things out of my life. And then lo and behold, all these new things started to happen. And I'm like, holy shit. And that's why I can't help but to say to people, sometimes you have to focus on what you don't want in order to get the things that you do want.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. And I often will say to people, okay, what do you want? What do you want? What do you want? And they'll say, I don't know. And I'll say to them, well, okay, what don't you want? So I love that that's kind of happened to you without you even really knowing that was what you were doing. And so once you did kind of work out what you don't want and all of those things that you just listed, how did you then step into what you did want? How did that kind of come about?
Okay, so when I was 8, I really wanted to be a funeral director. I'd seen a man being hit and killed by a car, and so my passion was to become a funeral director. But, when I was 19 and homeless, I went and knocked on doors to see if I could get this job, and I was knocked back. Of course, I'm homeless. I rock up with me bloody Adidas trackie and my hair. Like I'd never wore makeup or did my hair. And I'm knock on the door and they say, nah, you know. So I automatically think I'm not smart enough. You know, I already felt unworthy. I felt unloved. I felt like the scum of the earth. Like I had so many limiting beliefs. And it wasn't until I found myself sitting with myself when I had to change my life. And I didn't want to sit there all day because I knew that I'd won custody of the kids. I had to go to court and I had to prove to the courts for 12 weeks that I was a good mum. And I remember one day waking up thinking, oh my God, because I couldn't hang out with my old friends anymore. I had to get rid of everything out of my life. I couldn't go to the nightclubs and party. I couldn't and here I was 21, right? And so I remember waking up one morning thinking, mate, I am so fucking bored. Excuse my language. I did not mean that. Sorry, guys. I'm so bored. I can't fathom sitting with myself. And I didn't, all my life, I was told I was a scumbag and a slut and I'm dragged up like an animal and all these, you know how people get, when someone says something nasty about them, they fall into a heap. Well, I am so used to it that when someone says something nice about me or to me, I think, oh my God, it's very uncomfortable. So I had so many people say so many nasty things about me. I honestly felt like I was just nothing. And I remember that morning thinking, man, I really wanted to go back to my old habits. I wanted to hang out with my toxic friends, but I couldn't. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to go and be a barmaid. And that's when I went and did that course because I didn't think I was smart enough to be a funeral director. And I went and did that course. And from that, my confidence built because he said, oh my God, you're such a smart girl. And I'm like, oh, really? And from that, I kept just taking these little positive steps. And 7 years later, I finally won my dream job. So, and just that experience, I still use that experience to this day in everything that I achieve. I always go back to that when I knew that I could never become a funeral director, but the steps I took to become it, to everything that happens to me now. And when I'm doubting myself, I think, nah, hang on, this is just a limiting belief. And, you know, so,
yeah. If I can do that, I can do anything.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
yeah.
chiseling off all those beliefs.
Yeah. And so tell us more about since then. So you were saying that, you know, you run a successful business now. I know that you also do some public speaking. I know that you're also writing a book. Is that right?
Yeah.
So share a little bit about that part of your life.
So, okay. So then I win my dream job and my son ends up suicidal. He's got mental health issues from living in domestic violence. And so I end up building a business from nothing to like a multi-million-dollar printing business. And then people from my past were, you know, had got a sniff of me building a business and they, you know, people don't like to see other people succeed. And I didn't know because I felt so proud of myself. I felt like such a worthy person and I never in a million years thought that people would judge and criticise me for the success I was creating, you know. And I was shocked to hear that people were saying, you know, oh yeah, wait until Stacey's clients find out that she was homeless or she had a kid, she was pregnant at 15 or that she was nearly got her kids taken off her. And I felt so, the anxiety in me and I couldn't sleep. And I honestly thought that I'd have to give up the business. I thought I can't, because I'd never shared my story at this stage. No one knew my secret story. So I was very shameful of this story. And I knew that I had to either give up the business and I didn't know what else I was going to do because I couldn't have a full-time job with my son's mental health issues. And I made that decision that night. I thought I've got nothing to lose. I'm going to write my story so that these people can't blackmail me anymore. Yeah. And that's when I wrote that little first book, The Rich Get Richer, The Poor Can Too. And I think I wrote that in bloody 6 weeks or so, just a quick book. I need to get this out. And then from that, I was invited to be an ambassador for a foundation. And that wasn't from the book, sorry. That was, I'd met this lady at a thing. And she asked me to do a TV interview as an ambassador. And I did that. And then I was asked from that to do this speaking gig to 5 states in Australia. Ida Buttrose and bloody Napoleon Perdis with the other speakers. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll do it for nothing. They're like, what's your budget? And I said, oh, I'll do it for nothing. I don't want to be paid. And she's like, you know that the other speakers get paid $30,000 for this? And I said, oh, I'm not getting paid. I don't want to take money for this. And so I promised, I said, I'll do it for $1,500 and that's it. Otherwise, I'm not doing it. Because I just didn't feel worthy enough. And I thought $1,500 is way too much for me to take, but they wouldn't have it any other way. So I went and did that tour. And then from there, it just kept happening and getting invited to other gigs. And I'm like, oh my God. And now I'm writing the book of my life. Like, this book is just my heart and soul. That other book wasn't my heart and soul. This one is everything, you know.
Yep. And so what do you hope to share by sharing this book? What do you want to give? What's your kind of inspiration for the book?
So for me, if I go back, when I did counselling, because I was court ordered to go to a counsellor when I was 21. And my counsellor was like, she was like my cup of courage for me. I needed somebody to believe in me more than I believed in myself. So my book is about me believing in someone more than they believe in themselves, because what I find is when you talk to people, they've got dreams and they want to achieve goals, but their doubts and limiting beliefs and their fears and all this stuff, it holds them back so much that they don't even take one step. So I guess it's my words. Firstly, the book was written for my boys, to be honest.
Yep.
That I wanted that as my Bible for my boys. It's now turned into something bigger than that. I don't know what, but I just know that, yeah, it's to give courage to other people, that even men, like it's men and women, just courage that you can go for it. You know, you can achieve anything if you get rid of the shit that's holding you back.
Yeah, awesome. And so if somebody was listening to this and they wanted to know, you know, just a couple of small things that they could potentially do to get rid of the shit that's holding them back, what would be some of your tips towards that?
Well, first is to recognise what's holding you back. So, you know, one of the things that, you know, everyone does vision boards of the things that they do want. Well, what about if you do a board of all the things that you don't want? You know, put it in front of you. Talk to your partner about the things. Okay, I don't want to drink anymore. Don't want to drink alcohol. It makes me feel shit. Okay, you know you don't want to do it. So what are the easy choices that you're making at the moment? The easy choices is come home, you feel shit, so let's drink. But the hard choice is to actually say no, isn't it? So, you know, have the board of the things that you don't want, and then the choices that, you know, the opposite choices that you're making right now. You know, in ISO, I have not missed a walk. Now, anyone who lives in Melbourne knows how freaking cold it gets in winter. I love my gym. I've lost my gym. But instead of having a pity party, I've committed every single morning from March to walk. I haven't missed it. I walk every morning at 5 a.m. with my daughter.
Yeah. Because you know what you don't want, which is you don't want to feel this way. You don't want to be this way. You don't. Yeah, I get that. That's really cool.
So yeah. I continue to do it because, and you know, it's so easy for me to stay in bed in winter. So easy. Didn't want to get up this morning, mate. Blowing a gale, bloody freezing cold. But I got out there because I know what I don't want. I want a strong mindset. Exercise to me is my medication for my mindset. So that's what I say to people is really know what it is that you don't want and make the hard choices, because at the moment you're making the easy choices that are keeping you stuck.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. And so this is a question that I'll work out how to exactly ask it. But, you know, sometimes, and I know that I get this myself as well, sometimes people are like, oh, you're so lucky, you know, you have all the answers and you have this resilience and you have this confidence and courage, etc. And you never go down. And of course, that's an absolute lie. Of course I go down. So that's my question to you. Do you ever drop the ball? Do you ever lose your courage? Do you ever lose your confidence? And when you do, what do you then do to get it back?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, 18 months ago, my son, he went through, he didn't want to live anymore. That to me, I have never in my whole entire life been through I've been through that many challenges in my life and I bounced back. This thing was out of control. I had to downscale my business. I couldn't have my employees. I couldn't deal with other people's problems. I ended up with really bad anxiety. Now, I think I've had anxiety all of my life, but I didn't realise what anxiety was until I actually felt this through going through this with my son. I couldn't even drive to work on the freeway. It was that bad. It got so bad that I have never been depressed. Never have I ever felt depression. I actually started to wonder what life would be like not here. And I've never had those thoughts. How did I get out of that? I had done a lot of research over my years. And one of the things that I learnt from this Dr. Rick Hanson was that, you know, in your brain, that you've got your cells, right? Now, I'm no bloody psychologist or scientist, but this is what I understand is, you know, you've got your brain cells. So you've got a brain cell that lets off a chemical, the other brain soaks it up like a sponge, and it's like neurons that wire together. So if you're, say, an 8-month-old baby and you're wanting to walk, your brain cell, you know, chemical goes out, this one soaks it up, and then over time you repeat that, the baby walks, and it becomes autopilot. Well, what happens if your brain lets off a negative thought? This one soaks it up, and then you do a negative experience. So your brain is negative, your life is just negative. And I knew that that was happening to me because of my son. I just could not get on top of this. But what Rick Hanson says is that positive thoughts are very superficial. So you can't just think positive thoughts and everything will be happy. You have to immerse yourself in positive experiences. So I was like, I knew that I couldn't control my son. If he wanted to commit suicide, it was horrendous to actually surrender that. But I didn't know what to do. And I had to take back control of my life. So I immersed myself in positive experiences, and that was new things like I started to do acupuncture, kinesiology, because, you know, as a child, I had a lot of trauma, and they say that when you've got trauma, it gets trapped in your sympathetic nervous system. So I had a lot of trauma sitting there trapped. My son's triggered it. And so I went and got these kinesiologies and all this stuff done to unblock it all. And I did a breathwork class, and that was just the most phenomenal thing I've ever done in my life. And then I started to write my book again. Now, I've been knocked back from publishers for 9 years of my book. I've written about 5 different books, but this one lady, I keep ringing her, hey, I've got this new manuscript, can you look at it? As she looks at it, doesn't get back to me. Oh, look, no, this one's really good. I'll get you to look at this one. Yeah, Stacey, okay. About the 5th time. I promise this is the last one. And then so I read and wrote it, and I thought, okay, she didn't get back to me. You know what? I'm just going to write this book for my boys. This is the book for my boys. Anyway, I got it edited, and the editor said to me, you should send this to publishers. And I said, nah, publishers don't want it. They've knocked me back for 9 years. I'm just going to write it because I need this for my boys. I don't know how to help them other than my words. Anyway, she's like, please, can you send it to these publishers? So I sent it to the one that's knocked me back, and I'm like, listen, I promise this is the last one. Anyway, she got back to me and said she loves it. And then another publisher said, yes, I'd only send it to 2, and they both wanted it. And I was like, wow. So long story short, so I immersed myself in that book. That was from my heart and soul, man, when I was going through hell. And that's where we are. You know, I'm still running the business. I mean, we're in ISO. I feel amazing through it all because my son has had the biggest breakthroughs in his life. How
did he get those breakthroughs?
Hey?
How did he get those breakthroughs? What happened to help him?
He's been forced to sit with himself. He was so uncomfortable within himself. He could not sit with himself. And I used to say, come on, you've got to get comfortable with being with yourself. Because I used to be like him. I couldn't be with myself because I hated myself. Isolation forced him to stay at home every night. And now he's created a new neuron pathway in his brain. He's got his apprenticeship. He's been working since March. He said to me this morning, he was making his coffee this morning, and he said, Mum, do you know what I love? I said, what do you love, Jack? And he goes, I just love that I don't have to rely on anyone else to make me happy anymore. I said, Carla, bloody do you, mate?
Yeah.
I mean, he's only 20. I can't say he's healed. You know, he's going to come across challenges in life, and, you know.
As are we all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But
it sounds like he's learnt some tools to help him deal with that.
Well, again, it's about him immersing himself in positive experiences, because at the moment he's having more positive experiences than negative.
Yeah.
And so it's creating his brain to think positive and not just sit in his negativity all the time.
Yeah.
And he's around nice people. He's around positive people. He's never had that before, you know, so he's feeling amazing.
So cool, so cool. So for my last question, what I do want to ask you is, so for people who are, you know, living this journey and are sort of struggling with anxiety and struggling with, you know, oh my God, my phone's going, damn it.
That's just weird.
What would be in, you know, if there was just one thing that you would say, just do this? What would be just one thing that you would recommend that they do?
Seriously, get rid of all the shit out of your life. All of the toxic shit out of your life. And it's hard. But it's the only thing that I've helped, the people that I've helped from rock bottom to where they are now, I've told them, get rid of all the toxic shit out of your life. And that's all I can say. But people won't do it. They don't want to give up all that toxic shit.
Yeah. But what if, so what if some of the toxic shit, so I'm just asking you this.
Yeah.
Somebody said this to me once, and I'd like to hear how you might answer it. So what if the toxic shit is actually, you know, kind of a person in your family, like, for example, your mother or your father or your sister or your brother or your etc. What then?
Well, look, I would never suggest that to someone that's living in domestic violence. That firstly, I would say you need to go and get counselling.
Yeah.
Because you can't just get out of a domestic violent relationship. I was forced to get out of it. I was lucky. For someone else, I love my dad so much, right? I am so close to my dad. He's my favourite person in my world. But I actually had to get rid of my dad for a while because he's very dysfunctional. You know, he is a little bit dysfunctional, but I love him to death. He's different to a lot of people. But I could see that we were in a drama triangle, a lot of drama.
Yeah.
And I had to move away from my dad, an hour away, and I got a lot of hate because of that. You know, everything your dad's done for you, and you treat him like this and rah, rah, rah. But for my own self, and in order to keep my kids, I had to make these new changes.
Yeah.
So I had to up and leave. And we didn't talk for a while, for a few months, and I used to talk to Dad every day. And now, you know, we're closer than ever because I just had to put that boundary. We had no boundaries. There was nothing in our lives. If Dad wanted to turn up and take the kids out and get them ice cream at 10 o'clock at night, that's what he'd do. And I'm like, I can't have this, Dad. I need routine and structure. And he didn't get it, you know. And then when I put the boundaries in place, he didn't cope at all. He felt like he'd lost his daughter. He cried. I had to do it.
Yeah. And I actually do remember that from one of the times when I've heard you speak as well. One of the things that you really did attach to that really helped you was structure, wasn't it? So that putting structure in place to, you know, have those routines that you knew were going to lead you into the direction that you wanted to go.
Well, that's a huge one. That's probably number one, actually, is structure and routine. I'd never grown up with structure and routine. And it wasn't until I moved out on my own that I created so much structure and routine. And I ended up becoming so obsessed with it that I was meant to complete my traineeship in 4 years. But because of my anal structure and routine, I finished it in 3 years. You know, and I had 3 kids and I was on my own. So, and that was full time, working 9 to 5 days a week. and I
Wow.
still completed it. So, and that was solely because of the structure and routine that I had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So is there, unfortunately we have to wrap up. Is there anything else at all that you'd sort of love to share? Is there anything that you're like, oh, I really want to tell them this?
Not that I can think of right now, but I'm sure when we get off I will. But not right now. But yeah, well, I guess the thing that I really want to make clear is this is not directed at women in domestic violence right now, because it's not that easy, and I understand that. So if they are watching it and they are living in it right now, I understand you can't just get rid of that. It's, yeah, so.
It's a lot trickier than that, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, you have to get help.
Yeah, absolutely. To get counselling, read books, read success stories, become obsessed with how to get out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Stacey. And I know that lots of people listening will have got some really great bits of gold nugget there. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure.